a bunch of Kenyans who want my head on a silver plate. Yeah, really nice to be here. I like the work you guys are doing, and I'm excited to, have a conversation with you, and hopefully we'll agree on some things.
Okay. For someone who may not know you, which I think there are very few, how would you introduce yourself briefly?
Oh, well, I told someone fairly recently that a lot of people will introduce me as this very controversial, terrible guy, a capitalist, pro-government, and all that stuff. Other people will introduce me as the opposite, and upstanding dude, works hard, generous, reads a lot. In between those two views, there's a certain grade of the truth, and I'm usually comfortable with whatever they say. But if you'd want me to describe myself from, a life perspective, a Ugandan activist for good governance. I used to be a practicing pharmacist. I used to practice in cancer care. I used to be in public health. I used to run business. I used to run the largest retail pharmacy chain in Uganda, founded it, ran it for 10 years, exited it, and then started an organization called Pamoja Public Square. We usually just call it Public Square. It's supposed to be East Africa wide, but it's largely based in Uganda for now because, this is home. Charity is supposed to begin at home. And my day-to-day stuff is just, reading, writing, participating in the marketplace of ideas. I like to run. I've been running every day for the last 5 years. At least a bunch of Kenyans who want my head on a silver plate. Really nice to be here. I like the work you guys are doing, and I'm excited to, have a conversation with you, and hopefully we'll agree on some things.
Okay. For someone who may not know you, which I think there are very few, how would you introduce yourself briefly?
Oh, well, I told someone fairly recently that a lot of people will introduce me as this very controversial, terrible guy, a capitalist, pro-government, and all that stuff. Other people will introduce me as the opposite, and upstanding dude, works hard, generous, reads a lot. In between those two views, there's a certain grade of the truth, and I'm usually comfortable with whatever they say. But if you'd want me to describe myself from, a life perspective, a Ugandan activist for good governance. I used to be a practicing pharmacist. I used to practice in cancer care. I used to be in public health. I used to run business. I used to run the largest retail pharmacy chain in Uganda, founded it, ran it for 10 years, exited it, and then started an organization called Pamoja Public Square. We usually just call it Public Square. It's supposed to be East Africa wide, but it's largely based in Uganda for now because, this is home. Charity is supposed to begin at home. And my day-to-day stuff is just, reading, writing, participating in the marketplace of ideas, Um, I like to run. I've been running every day for the last 5 years, at least.
I've seen a few posts about your work at Public Square. I checked your website. I'm impressed by some of the work you're doing, but for someone who may not really understand the work you do at Public Square, just brief them, tell them, what does Public Square do?
Yeah, so Public Square is supposed to be a civil society organization. We call it a quasi civil society organization and think tank. Largely, we call it a poor man's think tank because we have experimented with this idea of tapping into local agency to at least fund the work that affects our society, as opposed to the traditional way of a guy coming up with a problem or talking about a problem and running to the West with a begging basket and then, trying to pretending to solve the problem and then, accounting for the funds at the end of the year and then going back to beg for more. We end up, I feel, in a perpetual cycle of problems that just never end. So when I exited my company, I figured, I'd suffered quite a bit with injustice and through business. And usually I got to understand that when, the legal structures don't work, business cannot work. So I told myself, before I go back to build any other business, I will participate in the public policy space and try to, push conversations that lead to certain reforms within these spaces. And so, with a bunch of friends, we started an organization called Public Square just to enter that marketplace of ideas and, challenge, advance our views and stuff like that. We work in the areas of public accountability. We've been here for like 2 years now, and in that period, we're probably leveraging, using online platforms, we probably exposed more than $150 million of corruption. In government agencies mainly, but also in opposition parties and other parastatals. And our work in that space has led to firing, I believe, contributed to firing of some leaders of a bunch of agencies, led to some arrests and stuff like that. You're probably familiar with our work in the Electoral Commission, the Microfinance Support Center. We saw blowing work on those multi-million-dollar heists between the Ministry of Bank of Uganda. You probably have seen, it's a lot. I might spend an evening just talking about the work we've been able to do in the anti-corruption space. Currently, we're doing a bit of work in the Ministry of Works. We just don't understand why Uganda has the dubious record of being among the top 6 countries in accident records. Yet, we don't have that many cars and, stuff like that. So we did some work, you might recall, exposing corruption in the Parliament of Uganda. That's work we helped start and finance quite a bit. So we just are like a citizen's listening post, and we go to bat for causes like that. Then we do some work in exposing poor practices in policing. You might have seen some work we did in Barra that had 4 police officers dragging an elderly woman over land fights after a downpour, and they were accusing her of trespassing on her own land. and were taking her to jail, which was maybe like the 10th time they had taken her to jail, just to force her to sign away her land rights. So we try and fight for people like that, who otherwise the justice system doesn't pay much attention to. So we picked up that case, brought it online. It garnered more than 500,000 views, and lots of people shared it, drew the police attention, and police leadership immediately fired those 4 police officers, and we're going after them through the courts, and the state is also going after them criminally. You probably have seen, this work is quite a lot, I think. You probably have seen the work we did in Chitezi to try and stem, there used to be sexual assault, I think they were ritual murders, sexual assaults of young girls between the age of 6 to 7 years, like one and a half years ago, in this area, just on the outskirts of Kampala, called Chitezi. And Sikh men would just waylay young girls. Maybe their parents had sent them to throw trash at the trash site or something just outside the house. They kidnap them, have sex with them, then cut off their heads. So we went down to that area and did extensive investigations, talked to the families, then we brought those cases to the court of public opinion. Thankfully, police picked it up, investigated and made some arrests, and since that time, no new death has happened in that area. We also do work in the environmental space, so besides public accountability, we do work on in the area of climate change and energy transition. If you've been paying attention, you probably have seen a lot of chatter around air quality in Uganda, in Kampala most especially. So we do publicity on that front, together with some partners outside the University of Wisconsin and New York University, Abu Dhabi. We're trying to, bring it to the attention of the authorities and the citizens that, there's a need to kind of address the issue of air quality. Kampala tends to have some of the worst air quality in the world, together with Nairobi, High Kenyan friends. But I think there's something we can do about it beyond just advocacy. We also are doing some work. You probably have seen this downtown work, flooding stuff that has caused such an uproar in every aspect of Ugandan public life. There's this channel that drains more than 90% of storm and flood water from downtown Kampala. And this rich man decides to build on it. So last year, November, we brought that case to the public, investigated it together with traders, downtown traders, brought it to the public. It didn't get much traction, but now it's front and center of public discourse. And yeah, we do quite some work in bringing such seemingly obscure but important cases and giving them public attention. The work we do is, besides that, you have civic education, you have, because of my entrepreneurship, I thought I would sneak in an objective to try and mentor entrepreneurs, younger entrepreneurs, try and pair them with financing, but I think that's just too much. So that's one of our objectives, but it's very silent, and we've not done any work in that space. Yeah, but it's quite a bit, and it can be dangerous and draining financially. A lot of my colleagues donate their time, actually pretty much all of them. But yeah, fundamentally, most of our work revolves around governance and justice. So it's not by mistake that you have Lady Justice at the back of my office. Yeah, in the justice space, we're currently covering this trial of a woman that's been accused by the state of shooting her husband and killing him. And we felt like there was a bit of detail that was being lost by a public that is in the criminal justice system that's usually zealous to prejudge people. So we felt it important to actually cover this trial extensively for like 2 years now, to bring people into the courtrooms and show them the underbelly of the criminal justice system. And you know, the feedback we're getting is amazing. People are actually realizing that I don't want to jump the gun here, no pun intended, but people are realizing that the state can fix you. And but the most important thing for us with this case is to answer the question around domestic violence and the law. And we're using this case to help us eventually make an argument that you have a lot of Ugandans who have no business being in the criminal justice system, in the jails up and down this country, but they're there because, you know, police messes up, the DPP messes up, the system is just rigged against poor people. And yeah, we're trying to fix that. We have a campaign called Empty the Jails that's highlighting the importance of, you know, reducing prison congestion, addressing flaws in the police to prison pipeline. Currently, Uganda has its prison capacity being at least 4 times over the anticipated capacity, and that's just a travesty. People are in the jail serving times that are longer than, remand times that are longer than their would-be sentences should they be tried and convicted. So it's something that we desperately need to fix. And yeah, so if that sounds like a lot, yeah, frankly, it's a lot. And I don't think I've got through half of the work. Back to you.
Okay, apparently you've answered one of the questions we received, where one person was asking, why is Mr. Natif so invested in the Molly Katanga case? I think you've answered that.
I can answer that.
And
I can answer that specifically.
Okay.
I can answer that specifically. Let me see. Do you see this book? Do you see this book? It's called Inside the Cell, The Dark Side of Forensic DNA. It's written by a professor from New York University, from the law school. And I'm going to circle back to that as I give you an explanation of this Katanga case. I don't know how much that person knows about that case, but briefly I'll tell you, because these are facts on the court record. You have this seemingly well-off, happy family. They come from Nkore royalty. They have beautiful kids. And you think, you know, they have it all. So one unfortunate November morning on the 2nd, police is called to the Katanga household and told that there's a death that has happened. But prior to that death, the Shamba boy in the Katanga household wakes up as usual, goes down to wash his boss's car, Mr. Katanga's car, so that he gets ready to go to work. So he hears noises in the Katanga bedroom. This woman is being beaten. She's crying for help. First time he had had such. He runs up confirms that this guy is beating his wife. Knocks on the door. He asks, "Who is that?" He says, "Hey, my name is George Amanyere." The Shamba boy, he chases him, tells him to go back. This guy is stuck, continues beating his wife. He devises means. This guy has a daughter called Martha. I think he loved her very much. Devises means is like, okay, this Martha wasn't staying at the household. It's just that, okay, let me get this niece of ours who is in the household. She's female. We'll go back up, knock, and see if this guy lie to this guy that it's his daughter Martha who is, knocking so he can open and stop the beating. But anyway, long story short, I want to bore you with details. The beating continued, and eventually, as this guy slopes downstairs, he hears something like a glass cracking. I think this couple had glassware, those glass jars where you put water at night and to drink. So he's like, maybe the glass is breaking. He had already called the couple's kids, who didn't stay there, called the kids' auntie, Naomi Nyangweso, who took her time to show up. So the time they showed up, went upstairs. Before they showed up, he's called by this lady who had now crawled out of the bedroom and was in an adjacent bedroom in a pool of blood. All her hands were broken. Her skull was cracked. Her head was beaten and all the skin was peeling off. These bones were broken. She couldn't hold a glass, let alone hold a gun. She lost one finger. And just lost a ton of blood. So according to police head of medical services, this lady had been beaten with a blunt object repeatedly, and had there not been quick medical attention, the man says those injuries were potentially deadly. So anyway, fast forward, the case grabs media attention. The man's sister, Naomi, who is an LC councillor in Bugorobi, a rich Kampala suburb, starts organizing masses against his sister-in-law, gets market women to carry placards calling her a murderer on the loose. Meanwhile, she's in International Hospital just up the road from where I live, fighting for her life. She had more than 50 stitches. She had repeated surgeries. She still had the effects of those interventions and the effects of the beating up to this day. And so, through agitation, there's powerful people on both sides. That man's mother, from press reports, lives in the State House of Uganda with the president's family and all that stuff. That's been reported extensively in the media. And then on the other side, you have the president's son-in-law, you have, powerful ministers, you have army generals on her side. So we're confused. We're like, what's happening? In the press, the tabloids are churning out very terrible pieces against her, calling her a murderer and all that stuff. So we said, well, let's try and investigate what happened here. It doesn't seem like it's real. So I used my contacts and got x-rays of this lady's hands and got some images from the hospital. And then I sat with some pathologist friends of mine from medical school and asked them if this were really possible that someone would shoot a gun. I don't want to really jump the gun, but I figured you asked, I need to answer truthfully. It all didn't make sense. And even when you go to my first tweets on this case, I had also bought into the public narrative that, this woman somehow shot her husband and inflicted all these injuries on herself. But then the more we dug, the more it didn't make sense. Well, maybe the public should allow her day in court. And thankfully for her, she has the resources to hire people like Edison Karuhanga, Jet Tumwebaze, Peter Kamasi, Mr. Kabiga, like the best criminal defense attorneys you can get. And the state is trying to secure a murder conviction by a gun without doing the basics. Like, if you have shot someone, the first thing you have to do is do fingerprint analysis. I mean, on the trigger, right? On the gun. Right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, but what if I told you that the state never did that, and the state wants to secure a murder conviction by saying, yeah, your DNA was on the gun. Your DNA was, you had gunshot residue on you, but they haven't done the same thing on the deceased man. So essentially, these guys are saying, this is a suicide. This person beat this woman so bad, left her on the verge of death and probably thought she had died and then took his own life. That is the defense's theory. And a lot of fascinating things have happened in court trying to prove that. And on the other side, the prosecution says, yeah, she killed him. And they're like, yeah, but she was there in the room and all that stuff. And then they try to suppress her injuries, try and not talk about them, try and, not talk about reports that indicate that all the blood in the room was her blood, apart from the blood they found on the door. They come out and say, this man couldn't have shot himself. He was right-handed. The bullet went from the left to the right. These guys are like, no, actually the bullet went right to left because you found it up a ceiling and the left hole was higher. If the right hole was the one where it exited from, it would go down. And so this case just brings all these fascinating details that are going to be very important down the road. One, in our jurisprudence, like you will have a proper understanding that not every expert who shows up to court and says I'm an expert should be believed. There has to be a way to cross-examine these people and put their assertions to the test. If they don't hold up, citizens should walk. We believe, and this stat is going to shock you, more than 80% of people, the Ugandan prison population has 5% females. More than 8% of that, 80% of that are there on domestic violence related charges. So how many of those are in jail simply because they cannot afford the kind of representation that someone like Mrs. Katanga has? But even someone as powerful as that, they cannot escape the vagaries of the criminal justice system. So we want to use that case to rally the people and hopefully, eventually, start a modern version of the Freedom Project in Uganda. And I'm hoping that people like you can come along on this ride because it's of extreme importance that we actually get such stuff done. I'm not preempting the prosecution's case, but I'm just telling you the inconsistencies personally that I don't quite understand. I do not want to ever, one, end up on the wrong side of the Ugandan criminal justice system, but two, if ever someone dear to me is accused of shooting someone, at the very least the state shouldn't say you shot someone because we found you with DNA. We found your DNA on the gun, but in addition to that, we found two other people's DNA on the gun. So then how do you decide that I'm the one who shot that gun? I mean, we are a couple living in the same bedroom. You found the gun on our bed, besides this person who died. It is going to have both our DNA. So it just doesn't make sense that the state should be able to say that. And they always do this stuff and get away with it. The guy says, look, you had the option of using the normal government analytical laboratory to actually analyze this stuff. Why are you going to a kitchen in police, which is not licensed? So as an activist, in the justice space. It's important that we religiously cover this case and bring this stuff to the public's attention so that later on this case can help other people beyond just helping Mrs. Katanga. Because we think her story needs to be told. She was called a murderer right at the start. And we're like, no, that's not how justice works. Allow her day in court like anyone else. And truth be said, the moment she had her day in court, a lot of these preconceived, the preset narratives that happened before the trial have been chiseled away with each day she appears in court. You see, you're like, oh my goodness, did they really say this woman cut herself in all these manner of places? And the police head of medical services who examined her comes and says, no way. This person was beaten with blunt objects. A tabloid says, thanks to people on the other side who want her convicted. Yeah, this doctor who came to, apparently provide first aid, helped cut her up, break her bones. He came with blood in his bag and then spread it all over the walls and everywhere. I'm like, it's ridiculous in the extreme, but this is the stuff that gets reported, and her kids have to read this. They are also on trial for apparently helping in this process. They showed up after their dad had died. These are kids who have lost their father. One had just gotten married. Another was pregnant. She is charged in the labor suit. And then told, you know what? You have 1 week, breastfeed the baby and then head to Luzira. The state says, yeah, the hospital says, this woman cannot stand trial. No, they drag her to court in an ambulance and throw her in jail. She goes to jail. In there, she enters there. She has one lump, one suspicious lump in the breasts. Months later, a prisons official writes a report to the court and says, this woman has now multiple lumps in the breasts. They are very painful. We cannot handle them. Court denies her bail. So where's the justice in this? You understand that, in society, we have the presumption of innocence until one is proven guilty. But if this cannot work with someone as powerful as Mrs. Katanga, who does it work for? So when we started highlighting some of this stuff, we see the public starting to pick it up. They may not agree with everything we say, but there's a method to this madness. Ultimately, when you look back, it's going to make a lot of sense. That what happens if you come and say, yeah, we found her blood on the doorknob, we found her blood on the ceiling. The police director of forensics was asked, how could her blood have gone to the ceiling? I don't know, maybe she pissed there. Like, ridiculous, cannot even start describing this kind of callous behavior. But, guys are like, yeah, you have a blood pattern analysis from your own experts. They clearly say there was a scuffle in this room, that this person was probably beaten, and that's how the blood ended up on the floor, it ended up on the ceiling, it ended up in all lots of places. But police officers will come to court and not talk about the beating she suffered, like they have rehearsed all this stuff. The goal is success of a prosecution is conviction. But we believe that success of prosecution should be justice. That if the prosecution has a weak case, get it out. If they have a strong case, convict the person and let them serve their sentence. And then you have all these delays that happen in the justice system. One matter that is, oh yeah, we're going to try this as a session. 25 adjournments later, 2 years later, now going to 3 years. That's the fastest murder trial we've seen, apparently. So, guys, what's happening? So a lot of shallow, superficial guys online and in all these places were like, yeah, this guy and Public Square are paid to cover this. But they forget that a lot of the work we do, like when we go and cover Besige's trials, when we go and cover this man running against Mr. Senyonyi, what's his name? Burora. When we go and religiously cover his case as he's facing corruption charges, does he pay us? No. We have not even ever met Mrs. Katanga. We just showed up and started doing the case because we know that at the termination of that case, it's going to help so many women on the wrong side of the criminal justice system. And we believe it will all make sense backwards. So I hope you understand.
Indeed, I understand. Now, there's also another question related to your work at Public Square. I've just seen it right now. And it was saying, hey JP, help me ask Mr. Natif. We have had a lot of NGOs in courts, according to the message, that have sought to provide awareness to the local population about issues in private. I'm a bit skeptical about agencies like Public Square, Agora, Citizen Development for Constitutional Education that seem to be funded by Western agencies claiming to promote good justice and activism in the country. Kindly ask Mr. Natif why he keeps on doing activism, yet they are funded by the West and collaborate with the government. This must be a Ugandan, though.
I like that question. First, I've said it. Sorry? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you can continue. Can you hear me? Yeah, can hear you.
Yeah, first, I have said repeatedly that funding for this kind of work is okay, but it should be a transparent process. You know, he who pays the piper calls the tune. Oftentimes, funding, especially when it's foreign, or even local, tends to distort the narrative. And it distorts priorities. And we have seen that play out in real time. The power dynamic suddenly shifts, and it's like we are renting our agency to whichever Western power is going to give us a grant at a particular moment. Now, I didn't get your listener's name, but I want to tell them, I don't know, this is my camera. Am I looking at you directly? Yeah?
Yeah, you're direct. Yeah.
Public Square has never gotten any funding for its work. All the work we do is funded by me and by the generous donation of time by a lot of my Public Square colleagues. We have never gotten a coin from anyone, not in the government, not in the West, not anywhere, to do the work that we do. But we believe that this work is hugely important, and citizens and whoever aligns with it should step up and either donate time or donate some resources and get it done. We think that the responsibility to build societies, the kind of societies that we're proud of, the kind of societies we want to raise our children from, is on us. No one is going to come and save us. No foreign money is going to come and save us. It might support some of our voices, but it's not going to save us. So we are the help that we need, and Public Square is choosing to stand up in a very non-partisan way. I heard him say, why do you collaborate with the president and the government and all this stuff? One, I don't directly collaborate with the president. Yes, we've met him like 3 times, but on different occasions and different pieces of work that align with us. One, the one presidential meeting that caused a lot of uproar was the one where we spoke about corruption. Guys were like, why didn't you insult the president? I'm like, are you crazy? This is, he's the president. He's the fountain of honor. Respect the office the man holds. Respect the fact that this man is extremely intelligent. And while you may not agree with what everything he's doing, but he's put in quite a shift, and you have to respect that. And, the point of activism is this, at least in as far as we understand it. Bring the attention of the public and leadership and power to a cause that you care about and hope that it gets addressed. If you're part of the solution to that problem, so be it. That's exactly why you are doing the work that you do. If you do not have the capacity to solve it, but you know that there's ways you can, get the people who can solve it to align with power and then get it done, perfect. But then a lot of Western money comes in here and it's funding noise. And then you ask people, at the end of the day, you've pushed all these hashtags. Well, how does your report to your funder look like? Yeah, our campaign went to 2 million people. And then what? I look at it as performative, some sort of mental masturbation. You have no work at the end of it. You just made noise about something and then moved on to the next one, the next trendy topic. It's like trend jacking. And we disagree with that. We think that there have to be some measurable, tangible outcomes at the end of that. And you cannot get these outcomes without involving the state. Most of these injustices are meted out to people by the state. So you have to come and challenge the power of the state and correct it and get it